My name is Gina Zurlo, and I am a doctoral student at Boston University School of Theology, as well as a research associate at the Center for the Study of Global Christianity, which is in South Hamilton, Massachusetts. And tonight I'm here to talk about the state of the world in 7 minutes, so I hope you hold on tight. The Center for the Study of Global Christianity just released a report a couple weeks ago in preparation for this meeting called Christianity in its Global Context, 1970 to 2020, Society, Religion, and Mission. And this report is available for free PDF download online, as well as available on the flash drive that you received as being delegates at this conference. So Christians around the world today find themselves in very different contexts than they did 40 years ago when Lausanne was founded. And this forces Christians to think differently about the people among whom they live and work, the ways in which they interact with them, and the potential for future cooperation. The key findings of this report are arranged according to the Edinburgh 1910 Lausanne movement motto, which is on the next slide. The whole church taking the whole gospel to the whole world. Next slide. So we'll start with the whole church. Next slide. The whole church includes all Christians. We count 2.3 billion Christians in all traditions, Roman Catholic, Orthodox, Independent, etc. There were 18,800 Christian denominations in the world in 1970, and this number has risen to 41,000 by 2010. By 2020, we anticipate there'll be 50,000 Christian denominations. This has huge implications for cooperation, and fragmentation remains a challenge for Christians around the world. The shift to the global south has also been well documented. In 1970, 41.3% of all Christians lived in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and by 2020, this figure is expected to be 64.7%. Between 1970 and 2020, each of the major Christian traditions is expected to grow more rapidly than the general population in the global south. A third major trend happening in the whole church is the growth of Pentecostal and evangelical movements. Pentecostals, charismatics, and independent charismatics have grown at nearly 4 times the growth rate of global Christianity. In 1970, these Christians represented 5% of global Christianity, but today they represent 26%. As far as evangelicalism, there were about 98 million evangelicals in 1970 and over 300 million today. And so these trends have major implications for how the whole church interacts with one another. Moving on to the whole gospel. In terms of the preaching of the gospel, the number of unevangelized individuals in the world has remained high, but relative to the percentage of the world's population. The number of unevangelized individuals was estimated at 1.8 billion in 1970, which was 44% of the world's population. So when Lausanne first started in 1974, you had 44% of the world was considered unevangelized. By 2010, this number rose to 2.0 billion, but the percentage dropped to 29% of the global population. And the next slide shows 2.2 billion unevangelized in 2020. So even though population growth is increasingly outpaced by evangelistic efforts, the percentage of unevangelized individuals worldwide is dropping. Christianity in its global context doesn't just include demographics of global Christianity, it also includes some key social issues facing the world and the church, and one of these is serving the poor. Among key social issues, the poorest children have made the slowest progress in terms of improved nutrition, and hunger remains a global challenge. Between 2006 and 2009, 850 million people around the world still lived in hunger, 16% of the global population. Even though extreme poverty has decreased, progress has been slow in reducing child malnutrition in particular. In 2010, nearly 1 in 5 children globally was underweight, including 1/3 of children in Southern Asia. Another key social issue that's tracked in this report is the work going on in slums worldwide. The Christian presence in slums in particular is disproportionately small. 1 in 6 people globally live in slums, but it's estimated that only 1 out of 500 Christian missionaries works in the slums. Going a step further, only a tiny fraction, perhaps 1 in 10,000 of national workers, such as pastors, work in slums in their own countries. So in terms of the whole church preaching the whole gospel, there still remains quite a few challenges ahead of us. Going on to the whole world. The percentage of the world that was religious continues to increase. In 1970, around 80% of the world's population was religious. By 2010, this had risen to 88%. And by 2020, we estimate that 90% of the world will be religious. This is a huge change from the context of 1970, which was the rise or the demographic height of atheist and agnostic population in the world. In addition, in 1970, Christianity and Islam together represented 49% of the global population, but by 2020, we estimate that they will likely represent 57%. So Christianity and Islam continue to be the two largest religions in the world, but Islam is growing at a faster pace in many places. Another key issue in Christianity in its global context is personal contact between Christians and other religionists. It's estimated that 81% of all people in the world do not personally know a Christian from any tradition. The countries in which this is most prominent is in overwhelmingly Muslim majority countries. And so on a regional level, only 10% of people in Western Asia are thought to have personal contact with a Christian. And so I just threw a lot of stats at you, which you can find in Christianity's global context, but it begs the question, what do we do about this? What does anyone do about this? Where do we start? And so in terms of some suggested responses, in terms of the whole church, we suggest provide training in civility, in hospitality. Seeing others as equally made in God's image and worthy of love and respect is integral to the Christian message and the message of Jesus. The Christian message is strengthened by the civility that is practiced towards adherents of other religions, but also towards members of other denominations. And so speaking into the fragmentation of Christianity, we need to be practicing civility among one another as well as among people who do not follow Jesus. In terms of the whole gospel, we need to think of evangelism and social action together as a unit, both globally and locally. There's no lack of opportunity for Christians to share their faith and be involved in social action. Local ministries and organizations are knowledgeable about the needs of their own communities and generally have resources and are connected to volunteers around the world. And in terms of the whole world, we need to deepen our knowledge and interaction with people of other world religions. As we see, the world is becoming more and more religious and more diverse. Reaching out to adherents of other faiths is strengthened when both those who are sending and those who are sent better understand the religions of the world, including their histories, significant figures, theologies, beliefs, and practices. And foundational to such an understanding is theological perspective on the similarities and differences between Christianity and other world religions. And so as we go through this week learning about unreached peoples, learning about worship, learning about the spread of Christianity and what it looks like around the world, this report, Christianity in its Global Context, I hope challenges us to think about the whole church and training in civility, the whole gospel in terms of evangelism and social justice, and the whole world about the people who are in it and the diversity that exists within it. I highly encourage you to check out the report that you have free on your USB, and if anyone has any questions, you can contact us. Our email address is in the report. Thank you so much.